Hello and welcome back to Let's All Laugh At, the football podcast that thrives at someone else's expense. I'm George, and I'm joined by Dan and Johnny this week. No Alex, but yeah, how are you guys doing?
Yeah, man, all good, all good.
Yeah, I'm all good here.
Good to know. Hopefully that won't change as we get to go through the episode, because there'll be some low points for sure. But yeah, there's a whole bunch we've got to get through. But I suppose we better start with the biggest event. Start with you, Dan. The total, well, there's no real way to describe it other than total just shock, humiliation, embarrassment, and just any sort of negative stereotypes you want to associate it. Yeah, I mean, losing to Arsenal on penalties in the League Cup. I mean, well, we'll talk. Yeah, we'll talk about that one first, because it's between you guys. I mean, again, after beating Arsenal at the weekend, and then moving on to the League Cup. I did even talk about before how typically these matches in the Cup don't tend to go the same way as the League. It always tends to be one or the other most of the time. But yeah, I guess I'll leave you two to it.
Yeah, from my point of view, I thought it was a pretty poor game, actually. Seems like a long time ago now, but it was a really pretty average game of football, to be honest. The only chance I can really remember was Minamino hitting the crossbar. Outside of that, I don't really remember a lot from it in terms of chances. So there wasn't, for either side, there wasn't really that many golden opportunities, if you like. And yeah, Arsenal went through. Realistically, Arsenal probably the better team to go through because they're more likely to field stronger teams as it goes on. We've got a history under Klopp of essentially swerving the League Cup. I mean, you remember last year, for different circumstances, we literally sent the kids to Aston Villa, which it looked like we did on Sunday, by the way. But,
I was about to say,
yeah. Arsenal, to the credit, were very resilient that night. They didn't give us any space. They defended very well. They didn't offer a lot in terms of going forward. But, like I say, if you'd have offered me winning one of the two, the League or the League Cup, I would have been happy with the League one.
Yeah, no, I mean, it does seem a long time ago, now, that game.
Yeah.
It does. God, I mean, it wasn't a great game, what I do remember of it. We took our penalties well, made the nose nice and cool. Yeah, it wasn't a great game, I must admit. It wasn't nothing to write home about, that's for certain.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I just wanted to get a word on it because it was both your teams, but we will move on to the main result of the week now, or at least one of them. No, I'm sorry. It's called Let's All Laugh At for me. Don't worry. We'll get to my humiliation very shortly as well. But we'll start with Aston Villa Liverpool. Aston Villa 7, Liverpool 2. I mean, I can't think of anyone. I feel for the person. Well, I envy the person that made a bet on that game and then the United Spurs score and managed to get both of them in the same night. I mean, that's their problem sorted. But Dan, I mean, how do you make sense really of what happened there?
You don't, to be honest with you. I don't think it's possible to particularly make sense of it. I think football in general is a little bit crazy at the minute in terms of the results we're seeing and what's happening. And none more so than that. Obviously, that was another level altogether. Yeah, it was horrendous. We were horrendous. Credit to Villa. A lot of people were slagging Liverpool off and not crediting Villa. Villa were clinical. They preyed on our weaknesses that night, which was the highlight. It didn't work. And they were really good. We weren't. It's a really difficult one to make sense of, and it's hard to criticise too much. At the time, obviously, it was shocking. It was embarrassing. It was all of the above. But when you've slept on it and you take away, it was just 3 points. As bad as it was, we've lost 3 points. And the one thing I'll say on it is previous seasons, obviously Liverpool have been involved in the title race. It's took like 95 plus points to win the league. I don't think it's going to this year. It's looking more like an 80-point sort of margin wins the league. So losing a game previously would have hurt a lot, but with City dropping points and other teams dropping points, apart from you two or Everton at the top now, I'm not overly concerned in the long run. I think if anything, we might bounce back even stronger from it, to be honest with you, because Klopp isn't going to take that. But yeah, listen, it wasn't good. We were horrendous. It was laughable at times, but we move on.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is the derby next week as well.
Yeah.
The top of the table of the Premier League versus Liverpool.
Hard, isn't it?
Hammers is making you look more and more like a mug by the day, but we'll have to see.
This will be his first big test, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And Everton's first big test, to be honest, because they played some good sides. Obviously, every side in the Premier League is a good side, apart from Fulham. But this will be their litmus test, if you like, the first one. The derby, a lot on it, and against apart from what happened on Sunday, a very good side. I think the Sunday result, it looked to me like they were a bit. I think Allison being out, and it was quite late notice, he got ruled out of the game. It just looked like they were shocked, and then when obviously Adrian made the mistake early doors, it looked like the whole team just drained of confidence instantly. It was a really strange one. Obviously now we're used to the fact Allison's out for a few weeks, so that shouldn't happen again. Listen, I fancy us the derby, and if we go and win the derby, we're suddenly joint top again. Everything's forgotten about. So.
Yeah, well, yeah, it is forgotten about. But if you lose, then that won't be forgotten about by us either. So keep that in mind. But Johnny, as for Villa, it's I mean, how do you? I mean, the thing with Villa, I mean, they survived by the skin of their teeth last season by a goal line technology mostly, or failure of goal line technology. And now, but they actually, the difference between them and a lot of other sides that just survived and finished 17th is a lot of them go down the season next season because they don't address the problems that they had. But Villa have done the complete opposite. They've spent so much money, they brought in so many quality players in positions that they need, and they look a real force now.
They brought Martinez in, and what style he's been for Villa. Jack Grealish looks a top player. Jack Grealish, I'm a big fan of him, and I think he'll go on into bigger depth than Villa. It was a weird game of football, wasn't it? It was. I did actually watch the game, to be honest, because I listened to it on the radio because I was too busy having the amp that Spurs beat Man United 6-1. So yeah, it was a fair play to Villa. They were superb. Liverpool, I mean, it was quite amusing to see Liverpool get battered, I must admit. But I mean, Liverpool they'll bounce back against Everton. I don't have it much. I think they'll beat Everton.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to that game personally. It'll be a fun one. But yeah, I mean, if you told me that Palace would concede at 3 o'clock last Saturday that we would concede less goals than Man United and Liverpool, then I would have said you're absolutely off your rocker. But we will move on to us, Chelsea Palace. I mean, it was easily our worst performance of the season by quite a while, by quite a distance. I mean, it's just. We talked about how Manchester United away was the quintessential Roy Hodgson performance. This was exactly the same, but in the worst way possible. I mean, we didn't even try and get at them. We didn't even try and get in their half. We just tried to sort of sit back and hope to get a chance, and the chances never came. And when you do that, you're inevitably going to leave yourself prone to mistakes. And this Chelsea team, the last time we beat Chelsea was Roy's first win as a manager. And we went at them from the word go. We did not let up. We played on the front foot because we knew we needed the points. We had to get our first win and get that monkey off our backs and get our first goal at the very least. And that's how you beat Chelsea. West Brom were 3-0 up by half time. All right, they didn't win the game, but they still did better than we did. That's how you beat this Chelsea, is they are poor defensively. And if you don't challenge their defence, then they're going to punish you with the attackers that they have. And that's exactly what happened. So, I don't know. I'm really mad about that result. And obviously we've got Brighton next week as well, which I'm not confident for at all with the way they're playing at the minute. All right, they don't have the quality that Chelsea do, and they've only won one game, but... You know, I still worry because I don't. Well, the fact, first of all, James McCarthy's been injured for Ireland, which means Milivojevic is almost certainly going to be back in the team and going to be captain as well. And he's the reason we lost the last couple of derbies before the one we actually won, because he just does not understand what the game means. He's not a captain, and so if he's wearing the armband in the middle of that pitch as opposed to Zaha, then I'm going to be seriously worried. But yeah, it's amazing how things can change in a week.
Yeah. I mean, with the Chelsea game, Palace. I mean, I watched the game and. It's like when Chelsea went 1 or 2-0 up, Palace kind of just gave up. I mean, they were a little bit under the penalties, to be honest. I think at least one of the penalties was very soft.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. Yeah, I didn't think it was a penalty either. But still, that doesn't excuse the way we played.
Definitely not. And I thought Palace, as you say, they've got some decent attacking players, and you can get at this Chelsea team with pace, and they're just very poor. I was expecting more from Palace. I was expecting a high scoring game. Which obviously happened, but not in a good way for Palace. But yeah, I think Palace will bounce back. I mean, Brighton's a big game. Unfortunately, there's no fans, which is a really frustrating thing for a lot of people. But yeah, it was a poor performance, but I'm sure they'll bounce back.
Yeah, well, the no fans I think might benefit us, because weird as it sounds, because I don't think it doesn't help us at all. Clearly in those games, I don't think, and it hasn't done for a while. I mean, the only win that we've got in the past 2-3 years. Was at their place when we are at a disadvantage. So I think that being the underdogs in that sense will help us. To be fair, I think the way Brighton play does suit us, because they will try and come at us and we can soak up the pressure and hit them on the break. But the worry is if they do the smart thing and they just park the bus instead and just try and make us break them down, because that's what we can't do. We can't take the front foot at all. And that's how they beat us the last 2 times. So that's what worries me. But yeah, I agree with you. It just frustrates me. Once you go 1-0 down, that's it, you try. But it's like they clearly... we respect Chelsea. We respected Chelsea far too much. It's like you shouldn't be afraid to have a go at them because I mean, like you said, we only conceded 3 more goals after that. Like, how much worse could it have got, really? Like, by doing nothing. It's frustrating. And it annoys me. And like, I mean, some of the comments coming out about Berriese as well, how he has to work on his defensive work. Like, it's like, no, he doesn't. He's a number 10. You're already playing him out of position. Like, it just frustrates the hell out of me. And I really don't think that, as much as Hodgson can get results, I really don't think he's the right man to be helping these younger players we want to bring in grow. So I am, way to put a dampener on the start of the season. I'm not worried about this season. It's the next I'm worried about, and the future seasons after that, because I want to make sure we make the most of all this money that we're spending, or at least all the money we've spent so far. How much more we're going to spend is a mystery, because I don't think we're going to spend any more this window.
No.
No.
You're right, though, in terms of the future, because as much as Hodgson has done a good job, and probably is doing a good job right now, there's definitely a ceiling with him at Palace, mainly as outrageous, not as outrageous, but as harsh as it sounds, because of his age. There's only so many years he's got left as a football manager, you'd imagine. He's been doing it for about 150 years now.
No, totally, yeah.
So at some point that has come to an end, and that probably isn't too far away. So there's definitely you'd like to think, if you were a Palace fan, obviously you are, that the next steps, if you like, are in place. Like, I know Klopp will leave at some point in like 2 seasons maybe, and I would like to think then that we have the next man lined up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, totally. That's what I want to believe. And it definitely seems like we are shifting to a more long-term vision. So maybe we do, but I just can't see, because it's very clear that the board prioritise staying up. That's it. That's all they care about. They only want to stay up. And I think as much as they might have plans like investing in the academy, and as much as they might want us to be like a top 10 Premier League side or European Premier League side, they're trying to set us up for after they leave. They have no intention of actually taking us there themselves.
The academy thing can be a double-edged sword as well, because that doesn't necessarily benefit Palace as a team all the time. You could end up just bringing through these good players to sell. A lot of clubs have done that, like Southampton did that for a long time.
Well, I don't necessarily mind that, because I don't think that we're going to lose a lot of these players anyways. I mean, if you look at Leicester, for instance, all these players that they brought in and sold, and if we can establish that network of actually getting replacements lined up, then I think selling academy players is nothing but a positive, really. Look at Aaron Wan-Bissaka. I mean, he was the biggest sale we'd had since Balassi, and that money has already gone such a long way. I mean, he cost us absolutely nothing. So I imagine Tyreek Mitchell will probably be the next one by the looks of it.
You might be able to get rid of Wan-Bissaka. He was terrible the other day.
yeah, we'll get onto that game. But I think the coaching for him has just got a lot worse at Man United. I think that I really believed that when he was going on there, I mean, he was called up to England straight away. I really believed he was going to stay there and become the starting fullback, but it hasn't kicked on. But yeah, we'll move on to you, Johnny, and I've just suddenly completely blanked on who you actually played last week.
United, 2-1.
Oh yeah, of course you did. Sorry, yeah, Sheffield United. And I was angry at the end because they conceded, which means they're not going to break our record anymore for the worst start because they've scored a goal, which is annoying. But yeah, sort of not really a tough test, I suppose you could say, although Sheffield United did look better in that game. But what did you make of it?
I mean, well, the only test was trying to stay awake for the first hour. That was the only real test. It was awful. Terrible. In years gone by, we'd have probably lost that. I mean, we scored 2 good goals. Bukayo Saka and Pepe's goal was good. And that goal lifted us. And after that, we were the better side. Good goal from David McGoldrick as well. I mean, can't take it away from him. Great finish. But and they had a couple of chances towards the end. And as I say, in years gone by, we would probably drew that, to be honest. But I'll take winning ugly. Do you know what I mean? I don't mind winning ugly. You don't get any extra points for playing well. So it's a good start so far. I mean, the only blip was, of course, Liverpool. But it's been a good start. I'm liking what he's doing, Arteta. We've got Gabriel played superbly as well. Yeah, we've got City next week, which is I can't wait for that. Looking forward to that. But yeah, it wasn't a great game, and it was pants, you could say.
Yeah, fair to put. But I mean, Sheffield United, it's 4 defeats in a row for them now. I know they've had a pretty good transfer window, signing Brewster from you guys down. But they need to start picking up results soon, otherwise it's going to be tricky for them.
Yeah, definitely. I'm quite surprised because in previous years we've had this second season syndrome, if you like, where a team comes up and they shock the league with the way they play, which Sheffield United did last year. The whole inverted centre-backs bombing on and all that sort of stuff. And I don't know whether, I'm starting to think people might have worked it out teams might have worked out how to play against them. The main issue they've had is not being able to score goals, obviously. That does help. And they might have addressed that with Brewster, potentially. And he obviously didn't play on the weekend because I don't think he was even registered in time. So, as bad a start as they've had, it'd be unfair to judge them until maybe we've seen Brewster falling for a few games, because that might be the missing link, if that makes sense. Because, like you said, he hadn't scored for 3 games up until that point. So maybe he is the person that they'll change the fortunes.
Yeah. I mean, I can't say I'm not God, and we didn't get him ourselves. Although I do think the deal they paid in the end was ridiculous. I mean, was it £23 million total in add-ons and a buyback clause and a sell-on clause? Like, how is that even possible in the same deal?
I don't think Crystal Palace needed him, if I'm honest. I think Sheffield United do need him, because outside of Ollie McBurney, I know Billy Sharp being a fantastic striker, and David McGoldrick scored that goal and will maybe get 5 or 6 potentially in the league, but outside of them, they probably need someone to get more like 10, 15, and Brewster could be. We don't know yet in the Premier League, but he could be the person to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of agree with you in the sense that at least we got Batshuayi in. But I mean, besides that, we've only got Ayew, who's not been as good this season. He's missed a lot of big chances, and Benteke, who is Benteke. So I don't really think I do. What if we do get injury to Batshuayi, then there's a bit of a concern. Okay, yeah. So before we move on, I suppose I'm going to nominate my game straight away, just so we get it in there. Man United Tottenham, because we need to mention that one. I mean, I thought that was going to be the game of the day, and it looked like it was going to go. It was going to be just Man United scraping a win with the penalty they got in the 3rd minute. But no, Tottenham came back firing, and now Dan, this week has really made you look like a mug, because first you got James, you have Liverpool, and now Jose Mourinho pulling out of the bag.
I know. It's a long season though.
I'm tempted to nominate you for the Let's All Laugh at this week.
Fine by me. I played a long game. My predictions are fine. They're not short term. There's a long way to go yet. I keep telling Everton fans there's 34 more games left in this season yet. Yeah, no, that game. Do you know what? I'm not that surprised by it, if I'm honest. United have been awful so far this season. They've been really poor. So they were lucky against Brighton, in my opinion. They didn't deserve 3 points there. So that performance, as abject as it was especially down to 10 men, was probably about right. Like, defensively, they are woeful. Harry Maguire, Jesus. I mean, he's defended his own man. He's dragged Luke Shaw to the ground for that goal. And without penalties, Man United at the minute are nothing, are they, really? So Tottenham are very good. They punished United's mistakes. Mourinho does what Mourinho does, I suppose. He wanted that Mourinho. When Mourinho wants a result, even now, say he's got a grudge or he's had words with the manager pre-match or something, he still has that fire within him to create his team to get the result. It's the other run-of-the-mill games I'm not sure about Mourinho anymore. Like, that's where I think football's gone past him. I don't know if he... And people talk about Tottenham for the league after that. I mean, talk about knee-jerk reaction. That is unbelievable. But, yeah, listen, that was more United being very abject, I think. And obviously the 10-men situation, which was controversial in a way. I think they both could have been down to 10 men, to be honest. But, yeah, Harry Maguire. Good Lord.
Yeah. Oh, he's terrible, isn't he? He's so bad. I mean, that game was just... I mean, as funny, and it was funny seeing United lose 6-1 at home, but at the same time, it was really upsetting because it was Spurs.
Yeah. I was going to say, you've got 2 of your rivals. One of you will be delighted with it. One of you will be pissed off. So yeah. That works out quite nicely. No, I mean, you mentioned Spurs challenging for the league, but to be fair, with how the rest of the title favourites, so to say, have started, you'd have to say it's anyone's game at this point.
You would. Yeah, you definitely would. Like I mentioned earlier, looking at it from this point of view now, it's not going to take the 95 plus points like it has done previously, because that level of consistency isn't there. I don't know whether it's the fans not being there or the strange turnaround or what, but I imagine it will kind of level itself out at some point. I can't imagine we have 38 games of this mental football going on. It would be interesting if we did, but I do think football will return to the normality, and I don't think Spurs win a normal league.
No, let's hope not. Yeah, I mean,
well, Leicester didn't win a normal league, I'd say. Pretty much every one of the big six had an off-season.
Comparatively, Leicester's a very good comparison because teams were off it. Obviously, there was fans and the situation was slightly different. But teams were off it and Leicester took advantage. So someone could do that. Of course they could. But I don't see it yet with Liverpool or really City. I think City will come back stronger than they have.
I mean, how did Luke Shaw not get sent off for that blatant kick on?
Oh no!
I mean, is that any? Surely that's worse than what Martial done. And Martial was an idiot for reacting to Lamella. I mean, Lamella was disgraceful, and I can say it as an Arsenal fan, but as a football fan, we don't like seeing things like that. And it was naughty. And the way he went down, it's like he'd been punched by Mike Tyson, and it was just not nice to see. But Luke Shaw, how he didn't get sent off is it's a joke. It was a joke. But yeah, and Harry Maguire, that's what is he? 90 million. Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, Man United spend all this money on attackers, or tried to spend this money on attackers, and I mean, they brought Hill back for last season, and it doesn't seem to have done well. And Wan-Bissaka, like I said, looks a totally different player. I think still one-on-one, he is he's one of the best fullbacks in the league, but it hasn't manifested. I think his confidence is way down. I think he's not being helped at all by the defenders around him. I think, ironically, he had a better back four when he was at Palace than he does right now, which is absolutely mental.
No, he probably does. Probably right, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, now we've got, with Gary Cahill joining since then as well, you'd argue it's got even stronger. I mean, United could have done with someone like him, really.
I mean, I don't think United, they're 3-1 or 4-1 down, whatever it was, and they're bringing that Donny van der Beek. Why is he not starting? I don't really understand why.
Well, exactly, yeah. Apparently his agent's really mad because, of basically what he's been signed up for.
Like Alex Telles from Porto, or I must admit, I don't know much about, but then he's a left back, so is he going to replace Luke Shaw? I mean, so he's going to play.
He probably will have to, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just, they bought that Atalanta midfielder, I can't remember his name, but he's going to be there in January. It's like they've got all these attackers and midfielders, but they need a centre back, and I don't understand it. But yeah, it's amusing anyway because Ollie's at the wheel, so it's funny.
I think in there lies the problem still. As much money as they throw at this squad, I still don't see Ole Gunnar Solskjaer as the man to make it happen. That's just my opinion. I could be again proved wrong. That's fine. I just can't see it. He hasn't. I know everyone's got to start somewhere. I understand that, and obviously every top manager I've ever seen.
Yeah, but the thing is, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is being treated like this brand new up and coming manager. He's not. He got relegated with Cardiff. This is hardly his first start. He's had plenty of years in the game.
Exactly, and everyone's got to start somewhere. I get that, but not for me. Not for me at all. And the problem is when you have a club legend as your manager, I know as having Dalglish second time around, when it starts going badly, you're very reticent to criticise because it's difficult. Like Chelsea now, if that starts going wrong, they don't want to criticise Lampard because it's Lampard. It's a really difficult one to be in, and I can see slowly creeping in that United fans are getting more and more fed up with the Solskjaer situation.
Yeah, I think you're legends actually, because like with Arteta, I mean he was at Man City, so he was learning under Guardiola, and I think with Solskjaer, I think maybe should have gone to United as a number two with someone like Pochettino as number one. They could learn from him a little bit, and then in a couple of years' time, then get the job. But I think he's inexperienced for a top job, Solskjaer.
The Pochettino situation for United, in my opinion, is gift horse in the mouth. How they haven't gone for him is remarkable. Yeah. He's a top end manager, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the problem. I mean, I don't think you can solely lie the blame on either Solskjaer or the ball. It is a mixture of the two. But I also think that as a result, I mean, they've tried the tried and tested managers like Jose Mourinho and Louis van Gaal, and it doesn't work. So, and for me, the solution at Man United is structural change. They have to completely restructure the club from top to bottom and adapt to this new, this sort of, I suppose, director of football model. It's perfectly clear they need someone else working on the signings. Ed Woodward is just simply not good enough.
He's obviously not. But they've spent some money. I seen, obviously, on transfer deadline day when they were all on about Sancho, etc. I seen some serious criticism from the board of United. And I know there's issues there, but they've spent a lot of money. They're not exactly shy. In the past, talking 2-3 years, they've thrown Harry Maguire 80 million.
I think it's more the problem with the way they're spending the money rather than how they've not actually spent it. Because, like I said, it's not just about buying players; it's about buying smart. And I think that the players that they brought in, I mean, the likes of Lindelof over the years, I mean, you can't say they've helped the team at all, really.
No, but they wanted Maguire, didn't they? And they wanted Alexis Sanchez when they brought him in, and that didn't work. Etc., etc. So, it's all well and good being wise after the event, but they've cried out for these signings and they've got them and it hasn't worked, and now they're pointing the finger at the board. It's a bit. I think there's bigger problems personally. I think the recruitment obviously hasn't worked, but I would still probably look towards the touchline. They bought Bruno Fernandes in January.
That's true.
I don't know how much he was. He must have been 30 odd million again. Like, they're not shy of spending money. And Edison Cavani, I know there's no fee involved, but it doesn't need to be when you're on his wages. It's enough in itself. So they needed a centre back. There's no getting away from that, and they didn't get one. So they're going to have the same problems, in my opinion, for the next 6 months. But like I say, I do think Solskjaer's on thin ice at the minute.
Yeah, well, it's going to be interesting for Man United. But as moving on to, because we're spending a lot of time on this one game, have you got a game in particular, Dan?
Yeah, I'm going to pick up on the Leicester West Ham result from last weekend.
Yeah.
Because international football's been on since, and that's dire, quite frankly. So, yeah, Leicester.
At centre back as well.
Yeah. That was a bit of a shock as well, wasn't it? In a weekend of shocks. West Ham as well. Like, from having a very troubled start on and off the pitch, since David Moyes has been working from home, they're flying.
I was going to say, yeah, is that a coincidence at all?
I know.
Yeah, it's quite mental. I couldn't believe what I was seeing, because Leicester off the back of scoring 5 against Man City, they get hammered. No, well, I suppose pun intended. But yeah, I don't like to shy away from my puns. But it's just, West Ham have completely flown out of the blocks, and Leicester is a disappointing performance from them, I think. I thought sort of in a way a quintessential Brendan Rodgers performance. Like, he can get his team up for games, but once that doesn't work tactically, he sort of gets left behind a little bit. So.
Yeah, the strength result, I must admit. West Ham, since David Moyes has been working from home, they haven't conceded a goal. So they're doing all right.
Yeah, probably. It'll be interesting to see how both these teams do. I do still expect West Ham to be in and around that sort of bottom half of the table, because I just don't think I think their squad is too thin, and I don't think they've added enough to it. Well, I don't rate the manager too much either, but you never know. If they keep performing like that, they could very well prove me wrong. And I think that Leicester have probably shown as well why top 4 is beyond them, even in this crazy season. I think that even though they've bought well, I don't know. Rodgers is a good manager, but is he a Champions League top 4 manager? I don't think he is, personally. I think we saw that at Liverpool, but I guess we'll just have to see. So yeah, what about you, Johnny?
My game, Leeds 1, Man City 1. I know it wasn't a high-scoring game, but what a game it was.
Yeah, it was.
Tell you what, Leeds, you know what, I think they're going to definitely ruffle some feathers this season, because they're a good side, and they don't stop harassing defenders. And they're going to, I wouldn't be surprised if they carry on where they're going. I think they will, that pressure, that press they do, I think that will be throughout the season. And I think they could be a really big outsider to sneak into the Europa League this season. I think they're phenomenal. They really are. And Bielsa, what a job he's doing.
Yeah, I will remind you that Norwich beat Man City around this time last year as well, and we were playing their exciting attacking brand, and you all know what happened there. So it's still a long way to go. We all know Bielsa teams dip towards the second half of the season a lot of the time. Yeah. So all I'm saying is, let's not get carried away at mainstream media. Let's just try and calm down. We all know you love Leeds because they get loads of views and they're good, appeal to the most fans and all that. And because they've got, Marcelo Bielsa in charge. I get that. And there is a very good chance they could do well, and they have played well so far. But they're not Barcelona either. Like, let's just, although they did nearly beat Barcelona, I suppose you could say, Pep Guardiola's City. And they did play well and they deserve credit. So it is a balancing act, I suppose.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah.
I'd agree with all that from everyone, if I'm honest with you. This is one thing I have said right on this pod after we beat Leeds opening day. I said they'd scare a few teams, and they are doing, including City, obviously. I thought they were pretty much the better team against City, to be honest with you. I think they were unlucky not to win it in the end. And City's problems continue defensively. We can't talk what happened to us. But it seemed like more of a trend with Man City, whereas what happened on Sunday night to us was hopefully a bit of a flash in the pan, a bit of a shock. Whereas City, that's been happening now for 2 seasons, really. So that was good news. And Leeds, I don't see them being anywhere near trouble. They're probably lacking the quality to get in the Europa League or push any higher than that. But the way they play will keep them, in my opinion, very much mid-table, out of sort of relegation danger.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with that. I think that they've shown enough so far. Well, again, it is early, so they could always have a collapse, but I don't think they will if they keep playing like that.
Yeah.
As for City, all this money that they've spent, and they're just, I mean, they're not. I mean, they really should be walking the league with that sort of squad and the money that they've spent, with the manager they've had. But and I don't think Guardiola is obviously a good manager and has done great stuff for this league. But at the same time, actually shaking your head down. At the same time, like you do wonder if he's sort of coming. He does sort of have that sort of 2-3 season, like sort of spike and then sort of fades out at the end. You do wonder if that's what's happening here.
Well, he has done a lot for the league. There's no denying that, and he is also a great manager. I do think he's very much one particular style of manager in that he has to have the best players at his disposal and an open checkbook, otherwise there's a problem. And that was proved, in my opinion, whereby he's got a defensive issue. We knew that 2 weeks ago. And instead of working with his players to solve it, he went and spent 60 million on a centre half.
Yeah.
But he has done a lot. But in terms of his ban as Man City manager, someone said to me the other day, it has the feel of Pep Guardiola's last season. And I can see that as well. I think he could well be on his way. And if it wasn't Pep Guardiola and he hadn't done so much for City, there'd be questions asked in terms of the amount they've spent in recent times. And he only won the League Cup last year. Like, they didn't win anything apart from that. And that's, in previous seasons, like Middlesbrough won the League Cup and that was it. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
It's not great at the minute, but they'll never sack him. But potentially at the end of the season, he could well move on, I think, yeah.
Yeah, I think with the defensive issues, I mean, that Ruben Diaz they bought, I must admit, I don't know much about him, if I'm honest. But £60 million on a player that doesn't have any Premier League experience, I think that's mental. There's a lot of good defenders in the Premier League who are playing a little bit low. You kind of Cody's of the world who could, world-class player, anything like that. But, he's got Premier League experience. He's a leader, which I think City lack at the back since Company left. I think it's a lot of money for a player that he's played in Portugal, and no disrespect to the Portuguese league, but it's a completely different animal to the Premier League.
Yeah, it's a very good point. And the Conor Coady shout's also very good. The only thing I'd say is that they've already bought another centre-half from lower in the Premier League. They bought Nathan Ake from Bournemouth. Yeah. So they've spent 100 million on centre-half this summer alone. Like, it's astronomical the amount of money that man spends.
Yeah, no, it is. Yeah, Nathan Ake, 40 million for a tip from Bournemouth who got relegated. It's just crazy.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll finally move on from the games then, because there has been more happening this week. Most notably, England, as Dan alluded to there, back in action. 3-0 against Wales last night, I believe. And the squad being announced as well and playing. And I was pleasantly surprised with some of the names in there. But it's also like, you feel like a lot of those changes were enforced because of the whole Foden and Greenwood scenario. But yeah, what do you guys make of England so far?
It's hard to get excited about England. I mean, it was a good performance, I guess. But Wales, they're not very good without Bale and Ramsey, are they? So you can't, It was a win. I mean, Calvert-Lewin, he's scoring goals for fun. Good goal from Danny Ings. Conor Coady scored. It was a good performance from England, but nothing to write home about. It wasn't it was Wales. If we beat Belgium tomorrow night, 3-0, then I'll go, wow, okay, that's a good result. Beating Wales 3-0, it's not much to shout about, just in my opinion, anyway.
I'd back that up completely. I think it's a very good way of looking at it. If they were to go and beat Belgium tomorrow, I think that would be more noteworthy. In terms of the squad, some new names, but you're dead right. I think that was forced upon him. And the Jack Grealish situation is becoming interesting with England because he's been outstanding this season so far. So whether he starts tomorrow will be interesting because Gareth Southgate loves Mason Mount, as we know.
Yeah. It is getting a joke. Like, you do wonder what the hell's going on there because it's very clearly not an accident. He's very clearly deliberately avoiding him. Maybe it's his reputation or something, like with all the stuff he's done. Like off the pitch and stuff like that, like, the COVID stuff that he was getting up to. Maybe it's just that, but like, again, you have. Then he shouldn't. What about Harry Maguire? Like, wasn't he still in the squad?
Yeah, but if that's the case, you shouldn't pick him, in my opinion. Certainly not to start. Yeah. If you've got a problem with him, a genuine problem, just don't pick him. Don't pick him and then talk about someone else when you should be talking about him, if that makes sense. But as for the game, like you say, Wales without. The thing with Wales is, they've got a hell of a lot of championship players on their side. And I thought they did okay for half an hour, to be honest. I thought they were probably the better team until they went 1-0 down. But if you take Gareth Bale and Aaron Ramsey out of pretty much any team in the world, that's a problem. And if you take them out of Wales, that's a massive problem. Because they're not just the best two Welsh players at the minute. They're they have been two of the better players in the world. Obviously not right now, neither of them. But they are both fantastic players. I'm sure Johnny will agree on the Ramsey situation. Because on his day, I think he was fantastic for Arsenal and Wales more generally. So yeah, Wales without them two is not a lot really. But yeah, the Southgate one's a strange one, really strange one.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the thing is, you mentioned about just leaving him out of the team. I mean, he did for a long time. He wasn't picked, and then people still got on his case for not picking him. So it's like, and I also saw a comment where somebody said that that's sort of the managerial style that Grealish has thrived under. Like, he's the sort of player that doesn't really do that well with being told what he actually does well. He's the sort of player that wants, that if when he's criticised and when he's not doing that well, he's incentivized to improve. And I don't really know enough about him either way to really comment on that. But I mean, I suppose, if that is true, but even if it was true, like, surely giving him a little bit of a nod in the media and not talking about another player is not going to hurt that particularly. I mean, it's not like, I get that he might be, you don't want to massage players' egos, I get that, but like, how fragile is his ego?
Yeah, because he massaged Mason Mount's ego on the question about Jack Grealish. Like, it was so obvious, the change. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's just a case that Mason Mount is naturally more humble than Grealish. I don't know. Again, I don't know these players personally or support either of their clubs, so I can't really comment on that. But maybe that's what he's going for. But either way, in terms of the Belgian game, I'm not optimistic because, number one, we've been spanked against them several times before, twice at the World Cup. And number two, I just think it's the game, England just seems to have lost their sort of, I almost want to say sense of adventure, because like even after the World Cup against teams like Spain and that, we were going for it and we knew we had good attackers and we utilised them. But since then, we've just become so cautious, and I don't understand why. Like, we should be going for these sorts of games because why not? We've got the players to do it. I understand Belgium are a very good side and they can punish us if we attack too much. I get that, but it's better than the alternative in my opinion. It's a bit like Palace. Like, I don't understand why we keep getting such negative-minded managers when we have arguably the greatest generation of England players that we've ever had. Certainly a lot of players that could be playing in that side that aren't.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, back to Jack Grealish and Gareth Southgate. I'm not sure why Gareth Southgate don't like him. But he said before he picked him, he's got to get Premier League experience and he's got to scoring goals and blah 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 blah. I mean, if there's one player at the moment, English player, that's probably the first name on the team sheet for his form at the moment, it's got to be Jack Grealish, because I think he's been in unbelievable form. So, as I say, maybe he thrives under it. Maybe he's like, well, I'll prove you wrong, Gaffer. I'll carry on doing my thing, and you'll have to pick me eventually because I'm the best English player in the league at the moment. So, I like Jack Grealish. I think he's, I say I don't know him personally, but Mason Mount, I don't really see what he does. I don't want to sound harsh on him, but he's been pretty poor this season. He's still getting picked for England, which I find a bit bizarre. Just my opinion, but I don't think he's all that, Mason Mount, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because, like, for me, he's both an overrated and underrated player. Like, I think he's underrated in the sense that a lot of his good work does go unnoticed, but also, he's hardly England's best player either. And I feel like him being a guaranteed starter. I mean, let's face it, if he played for Villa and Grealish played for Chelsea, we all know who'd be getting in the team. It's always been the case. But yeah, I mean, moving on from England, because there's not really that much else to talk about with them. One thing I did want to nod to was the Republic of Ireland game. Their loss in that match. I forget who they were playing, but it means, unfortunately, the possibility of an Ireland versus Northern Ireland playoff for the Euros is now off. That's not possible. So that would have been really good to see personally, but that's a bit of a shame.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, it's a shame we can't have all the home nations in the Euros. I mean, fantastic, like it was a couple of years ago. Well, minus Scotland, obviously. Yeah, they're not very good. But if they qualify for the first time since '98, fair play to them. We want as many home nations in there as possible.
Well, I mean, I'm happy just England getting there personally. I mean, I'm not. I quite enjoy being the other home nations personally. But yeah, so we'll move on to a slightly more serious topic. The Premier League. I mean, we all know about the finances of the Premier League due to COVID, but it was recently announced that all the Premier League games that aren't going to be broadcast from, I think, next month onwards, it's £15 a game per game for every single one that you want to watch. So, and Sky are broadcasting about 4 or 5 games. So that's at least half the games a season. If you want to watch every game every week, that's going to cost you at least £75 a week. I mean, Johnny, you were particularly vocal about this in our chat. I mean, what else is there left to say?
I mean, it's bad timing. It leaves a bad taste in the mouth. I get that the clubs need help. I completely understand that.
Do they?
But, well, I think
the Premier League, they do they? Because the TV money is just so massive.
Yeah, I get that, but I just think, as I said in the group chat, I was like, surely, because all these clubs have got the capabilities of streaming. Arsenal have got the Arsenal player. I'm sure Liverpool got the Red player, whatever it's called. And Palace have probably got that as well.
Yeah.
All in-house commentators as well. So surely, if you just, blanket, how much is a pint in Selhurst Park? A bottle, £4.10, £5.10, something like that, whatever it is. If you charge everyone the price of a bottle of beer. And it could everyone could watch it then. They make more money out of it because you get millions of people watching it thinking it's only a fiver. I'd rather pay £5, £10, £15 a week and listen to the in-house Arsenal commentators than listen to Poxy Roy Keane every week, if I'm honest. I just think it's bad taste. It's bad taste. And I get, clubs are struggling, but it's just a really, really bad move, in my opinion. When you look at the money they spent on players, 1.2 billion, £200 million on agent fees, and now £15 per game. It's just a bit wrong, if you ask me.
Yeah, echo all of that. Really, I don't know if it's the concept in general doesn't sit right with me because pundits, fans already pay enough money in terms of TV subscriptions because it's spread across 3 different things now, from Sky to BT to Amazon. So you're talking £100 before you've even started to watch football, regardless of if it's your team or not. So to then kick people while they're down, particularly in the times we're living in, and demand £15 to continue watching your team is outrageous. I don't know who they think, apart from, I think it's Burnley, West Brom, one of the games, who outside of them 2 groups of fans are going to spend £15, and not a lot of them fans will even do it. So they've really slipped up, in my opinion. I don't think they expected the backlash that it got. It reminds me of when Tottenham and Liverpool made the decision to furlough staff much earlier on in the year.
Yeah.
And I know the Liverpool backlash was incredibly strong, and rightfully so. And Liverpool went back on it. Now, whether the Premier League go back on this is debatable. It might be too late for that. But I think they thought it might just go under the radar and just be forgotten about. Oh yeah, it's £15 to watch a game, so be it, everyone cracks on with their lives. Instead, it's been really taken up. And I've seen the likes of Henry Winter and some big names in journalism saying, no, this is not right. And it isn't right. It's whether it's the price point, like I say, whether it's the £15 that's wrong or the whole concept in general, I don't know. You probably could get away with a fiver. I know Liverpool and Sheffield United is going to be pay-per-view. I won't pay it, mainly out of principle, to be honest with you. If it's a fiver, I might be tempted. But even then, it smacks of everything that's wrong, because as much as they're not getting as much money in through the door and stuff like that, football clubs, there's enough money to get by for the time being. It's not ideal, I get that. But if you're spending, I think the Premier League spent £200 million on agent fees alone, just it's such a bad look. It's such a bad look to spend all this money. It's over 1.2 billion, and then 2 weeks later go, oh, by the way, Tom, Dick, and Harry, we need £15 a game. It's wrong, completely wrong.
Yeah, and also with £15 a game for us three to watch it, but then is it going to be different for pubs, for instance? So if there's a game that because I know pubs, they get charged an absolute stonking amount.
Yeah.
So is it going to be £15 for pubs as well? Because for boxing,
all it's going to do is when those boxing events on Box Office, for instance, in the past, you'd go around to your mates and you'd all chip in, for the £17 or whatever. That's going to happen with football.
Yeah.
So one person will pay the £15 and you'll all give him £2 each, and suddenly there's 10 people in the house. That's really bad maths. There's 10 people in the house, and that's exactly what they're trying to avoid, this close contact.
This hasn't been thought through at all.
Yeah, so it's such a poor idea from every level, in my opinion. The only people that benefit are the football clubs, who get a bit more money through the door, through whatever you want to call it, but they're not going to get as much as they think because of the amount of people that are going to turn away from it.
The football clubs and the Premier League and the TV companies is who benefits from this.
But I don't think they will in a massive way, because the amount of people that I've seen turned off from the idea, as opposed to going, oh yeah, sound, I can watch Liverpool.
Well, you say that, but the thing is, people still pay their money for their football because they love their football and they don't want to go without it. I mean, people just complain all the time about rising ticket prices and they still pay it. And I think that is ultimately the problem. And I think that I'm not saying people won't be turned away from it, and maybe more will be than usual, but I still think that it's so important to enough people, particularly with the lockdown and things like that.
Yeah.
It's had a huge effect on people's mental health, and a lot of people rely on their football for mental health. Definitely. So it is exploiting those people in a lot of ways. But at the same time, I can't help this isn't a popular opinion, I know, but the reason they're doing this is because they know people will pay it. They are exploiting people like this, and people are. I don't want to say people are allowing themselves to be exploited, but they sort of are, because they're still paying the money. So there's no democracy in this. They're private companies. They can do whatever they want, and the government clearly doesn't want to crack down on it. So the only other option is for us to vote with our wallets. We have to just say no, we're not going to pay it, because football isn't a necessity. As much as a lot of it does feel like a lot of the time, and I understand that for a lot of people. I don't watch a lot of football myself, even with my team. I tend to listen on the radio or even scroll through Twitter to check the updates. So I understand. I don't know what it's like, but I do know that if you want to see real change on this, the only thing we can do is just not give them the money, because they're following the money. That's the thing. They are following the money.
Yeah.
So
we've seen similar things in the past. I know as a Liverpool fan, when the previous American owners tried to hike the prices, we had the walkout and what have you, and obviously had an impact. Maybe something similar needs to be done now. Obviously, it's impossible to walk out from this situation. But if the first game comes around in a couple of weeks, I think it's United Newcastle off the top of my head. Like, if we got enough people, like, I know I won't, but if Twitter, because Twitter's very powerful being at the minute, said, no, we're not going to do it, and enough people just turned away and the figures were ridiculously low, that would send a message, and they might go, hang on a minute, we've messed up. If they haven't done that already, because like I say, the backlash has been pretty extreme, that they might already be going, oh no, we've dropped the bollock here. Like, we need to lower this price or something,
It's crazy. It's crazy. And so, like, with boxing, for instance, as well. Like, in a pub, to get pay-per-view, it's like something we did. It's like 500 quid.
Yeah, a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. So are they going £15 for pubs as well for the football, or because that's a lot of money. Because say if you got Burnley versus Fulham on Sky Sports 1, and no one wants to watch that. I wouldn't even take £15. But say there's a different game on a different channel, and they go, well, it's £15, and you got 5 people in there. You go, yeah, that's fine. It's going to be 200, 300, 400 quid to do it. It's going to kill pubs off even more, isn't it?
Yeah. The one thing we haven't mentioned here is illegal streaming as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's like I said on Twitter as well. It's like I'm convinced they're trying to get people to pirate their crap at this point. Like,
probably right. Because that's how I'd watched Liverpool previously. Like, not at my house, at somebody else's house. So it completely exonerates me of all guilt. But if Liverpool on at 3:00, like, obviously when the blackout existed, that's how people watch football, isn't it? Like, that's what we do as football fans. So that's what's going to happen, because people aren't going to pay 15 quid. The odd person will, obviously, but I guarantee you the people that are paying it have probably got people at the house to watch it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's worth noting as well that of the 20 clubs that were voting on that policy, the only club of the whole 20 that voted against this £15 fee were Leicester City.
Yeah,
which, I mean, honestly, fair play to them, because that's actually putting their money where their mouth is as well. Because they always, I don't say they go on about, but they're made up like they're the people's club and that, and they have proper owners that understand the game. And they actually did the right thing. They stood up for their fans. Whereas my own club, Palace, we go on all the time about how we're a community club and how chairman's a Palace fan. No, you're a community club when it suits you and it gets you good PR. When push actually comes to shove, you just follow the money because you're a career businessman. I mean, not to mention the worst season ticket plan in the entire league, which, to be fair, they have sort of come out and reversed slightly. They're saying, and basically anyone who can, because the way the ticket round worked was basically you paid for a full season ticket as normal, and then you were entered into a pot. Like, so only you're only getting a fraction of the games you actually paid for while still paying full price. And now they are offering a refund to season ticket fans who can't make all of the games because of the ones that have been cancelled. So at least, I mean, it's better than nothing, but it's still a really poor plan. And the fact that they voted in favour of this as well goes completely against everything they claim to stand for. So I'm ashamed, personally.
I can only echo that from a Liverpool point of view. It's really disappointing, but it's disappointing from every single club's point of view, like, apart from Leicester, obviously. Fair, like I say, hands up to Leicester. Fair play, like, that's a top effort from them to say no. It really is.
I'd be so proud if I was a Leicester fan.
Yeah,
I really would, but I'm not. So.
What does annoy me a little bit as well, I mean, because it's like the England game the other night against Wales, and Wembley's a 90,000 seater stadium. Why can't we have fans in the stadiums if it's that big? You can go to the pub with 30 people in there. You can't tell me they can't be fans in stadiums. It's making no sense, if you ask me. I mean, it's just 1,000. There's too many into stadiums.
That's right, and it's happening in other countries now. Did you hear the story of the non-league side who have got a social club at their ground, and they had fans watching the game in a social club, and outside was the same game?
Yeah, because the social club is allowed, but you can't just transfer them onto the pitch literally next door.
They were allowed into the pub to watch the same game, but they weren't allowed outside to look at the match.
Yeah, it's like Dortmund, 16,000 fans they had at the weekend.
Yeah.
Or the other day, whenever it was. You know what I mean? These stadiums, I mean, they're COVID safe, so surely you can have 1,000 fans in there. It doesn't make any sense. And the England game, Wembley being completely empty, and you think to yourself, surely, if there's one place that they can socially distance, it's Wembley. It's
in my opinion now, they don't trust football fans, is my take on it. Because they're letting him, like, I think, to the opera and all that sort of palaver. They don't trust football fans. Or they're completely out of touch with what football means. And they see the likes of opera and the Royal Albert Hall and all that sort of thing as more important, because that's the world they live in, whereas they're completely wrong, obviously.
Yeah, I was going to say that's getting slightly political, but I think the people in charge are definitely look down their nose on football, and football fans in particular a lot of the time. And I think that's probably what's getting it up, what's making all these decisions. But yeah, we will move on for this. One thing that I did want to talk about was, speaking of the Premier League, there's talks of, or the EFL at the very least, there's talks of course, there was the changes to the Checkatrade Trophy a few years back, which allowed under 23 teams from Category 1 academies to compete in the trophy. There's now talks of them being allowed into the league system as well. Neil Warnock was trending, was a clip of him on TalkSport was going viral because of the comments, the interview he did against it. We all support bigger clubs, well, at least with Category 1 academies. So I'm wondering what you guys would think of that proposal.
I mean, it's a difficult one, but yeah, why not? I mean, if it gives the younger players experience playing quality opposition, rather than go out on loan, if they go the after under 23 or whatever it is, and they go and play in League Two or whatever, or even the conference, and they gain experience by not going out on loan and playing for their club they meant to play for, then I think it could be a good thing, but it's a very difficult one.
Not for me, to be honest. I'm a bit of a traditionalist, and I love football through the pyramid. Obviously, I'm a Liverpool fan, as we all know, but football throughout the pyramid, I love it. Like, I'd go to watch anything, you know what I mean? And I've grown up with the 92, if you like, even though it's changed slightly now. I don't want to see Liverpool B team playing in League Two. I've got no interest in that. I know they have it in Spain. Like, I think Real Madrid have Castilla, and I think Bayern Munich in Germany have got their own team.
Yeah, Dortmund as well.
Yeah,
Dortmund plays at the third tier of Germany, I think it is they play in.
Yeah, I don't think they can ever meet. So, say, for instance, Real Madrid B team got promoted to the league. I don't think that's allowed to happen.
Yeah.
Which is understandable. But no, not for me. They play their own matches. And I get the point Johnny makes is a very good one in terms of the young lads getting better match experience. But if it upsets the 92, which we've seen enough of already with Macclesfield and Bury, then I don't want to throw our teams in there as well, personally.
Good point.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the other solution would be to just expand the number of teams in each league and make it 100 clubs as well. I don't know, maybe but then there's more fixtures to play as the problem then, and then that could be a cost for teams. I mean, I think the problem is it's ignoring the smaller teams. It's clearly being done for the benefit of the bigger teams.
It was the Man City guy, wasn't it, that said it?
I think it was, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, who bizarrely have got an open checkbook and have their B team would compete in the Premier League. Let's not be
exactly.
The way he wants it.
There would have to be some sort of restrictions where they can't play higher than League Two or the Conference or something like that.
Yeah,
because I think you're
just win it all the time, wouldn't they?
They
buy football clubs for a laugh, man.
Well, to be fair as well, I mean, with the Checkatrade Trophy, the main complaint is that it would ruin, a lower league team's day out at Wembley, because the bigger teams, the bigger clubs, youth teams would just steal it instead. And, the bigger clubs wouldn't take that many fans there because they're under 23s. Who would care? But to be fair, since they made that change, not one academy side has actually made it to the final since.
No,
so it hasn't actually quite had the effect that people thought it would.
But they are very much academy sides, aren't they?
Yeah.
I think if you went to like a B team sort of scenario, they'd be strong teams, they'd be fierce. Yeah. You know what I mean? It would change.
Yeah, no, there'd have to be a limit. Like, I think the academies are limited to 3 first teamers or registered in the first team. Like the 25-man squad, you're only allowed 3 of those players in per game.
But I think if it was League Two football, that wouldn't be the case.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm thinking. If they would have to keep those restrictions, otherwise I definitely wouldn't support it. And if that's the plan they've got, then yeah, I'm not in favour of that at all.
No.
But if they were to do the same rules they have for the Checker Trade Trophy, then I wouldn't say I'd support it, but I also wouldn't necessarily oppose it, if that makes sense. But I do think that, I mean, what I definitely support is that lower league clubs have to be taken more into consideration than they currently are, because they're clearly not, and that's ultimately what people are getting mad at.
Yeah, definitely. I'm not sure all the time loan moves are good for some players as well, because
no, totally not.
Because some players are very, certainly when they're brought up in Premier League academies, they're very suited to that type of football. If you throw, I know a lad called, and Ben Woodburn for us, he's a very lightweight striker, and he went to League One last year and did okay. But if you throw someone like that to League One or League Two, where they pretty much just get bullied, it's a learning curve. But is it great for development all the time?
I mean, yeah, we seem to have stopped giving players loans, not a lot of the time because they just outright, they decline the loan. Like we've had players like Nia Kirby, went on loan to Blackpool, did okay there, but didn't feature in the team that much. And then he was offered more loans and he didn't take them. I mean, we've had players. I mean, Wan-Bissaka never had a loan. Tyreek Mitchell, who started for us, has never had a loan.
Oh, yeah.
So you don't need it to become a good player, but it's important. I think the problem is that you get the right loan. Like you have to get a club that fits the player and actually gives them a path to do well in the first team. You can't just throw them on, throw them to like a Bristol Rovers or whatever and expect them to just do well because they're a mid-table League One club. That's not how it works. Teams, it's like a transfer. You have to pick the right team for you. Off the top of my head, Ryan Innes, who's now 26 years old, I think he's 25 years old, but is still an academy player for us technically. He's had how many? He's had 10 loans, 9 or 10 loans or something ridiculous. Got arrested as well before, so he's had quite a controversial career to say the least. But yeah, speaking of that, we will move on to Let's All Laugh At, because mine actually concerns Mr. Innes himself. As I mentioned, he plays in our Palace under-23s, who have recently become a Category 1 side. They played against Aston Villa, which they lost in the last minute, typical Palace. But they also had Reece Hanam in the team. He used to be a West Ham academy. They released him and we picked him up on trial. But whilst we mentioned the Checker Trade Trophy, he played against Newport County, like against West Ham in the trophy, against Newport, and Ryan Innes was in the team, and he was actually sent off for that match and given, I think, something like a 6 or 8 match suspension for biting Hanam. He went all Luis Suarez on him, and now they're playing in the same lineup for Palace like less than a year later. I mean, that must have been an awkward pre-match dressing room. I mean, can you imagine the team talk before that game? Oh yeah, Reece, sorry, you're on the back four and you're alongside the bloke who bit you whilst you were at Newport. Oh yeah, good game. You have a good game, you two. Break a leg. Bloody hell. I mean, only at Palace. I mean, I just think that's no one else will have heard of that apart from Palace. But I saw Palace youth make the connection. And I was like, oh my god, I've got to bring light to that because that's ridiculous. It's literally like trying to get Luis Suarez to play in the same team as Ivanovic. Or Chiellini or whoever it was he bid at Ajax. It's ridiculous.
Jesus.
Yeah. All right then. We'll go to you then next, Johnny. Who have you got?
It's a difficult one, but it's something that Paul Pogba come out and said the other day. It's his dream to play for Manchester United. And his dream to play for Real Madrid. And I'm like, mate, it's my dream to sleep with Margot Robbie. Yeah, it's not happening, mate. It's not happening. It's not going to happen. And honestly, the way he plays, he's rubbish. I don't care what anyone says. Paul Pogba, overrated footballer I've ever watched in my entire life. He's crap with the ball. He's crap with the ball half the time. He's even worse without it. He's getting the Real Madrid team. Only on FIFA, you might get in there. But honestly, I had a little chuckle to myself when I read it because I was like, he was so deluded, honestly. And Harry Maguire as well. Got to laugh at him because he was posing, trying to foul his own player and then try and get a free kick. Hilarious. Honestly, Dan, watching it, he's trying to appeal for a free kick, and it's like
he did, didn't he? Yeah.
You just fouled Luke Shaw. You've literally dragged him to the floor. Yeah, and also his little argument with Rashford when Martial got sent off. I don't know if you've heard what he said. He was like, "What's happened?" And he was like, "Rashford's like, he's getting red carded, mate." Or is he? No, you have to know these things, you idiot. But yeah. Paul Pogba for me, what he said about Real Madrid.
Yeah, I mean, with Pogba, with the comment about wanting to play for Real Madrid, it's like, can you imagine a Manchester United player saying in the past, like under Alex Ferguson, it's my dream to leave Man United to play for Real Madrid? I understand they're the biggest club in the world. I understand Man United players have left for Real Madrid before. Obviously, Ronaldo, David Beckham. Did any of them ever say, oh no, it's my dream to play for Real Madrid one day? No, they said, I'm happy at Manchester United. I'm winning trophies. Like, even though they left in the end, like they were at least, you can understand it was still an appealing proposition to stay at the club as well. And now it's like they've just become a stepping stone almost. It's nuts.
Yeah, and the thing is, as you say, like under Ferguson, they'd be like, they have Man United winning things, and I just think if you're playing well, and you're a solid 9 out of 10 every game, and someone asks you, who's your favourite club, and you go, Real Madrid, you go, do you know what? He's playing good football. You know what? We'll let him have that one. When you're not playing very well, and you start saying, I want to play for Real Madrid, it's like, well, you can barely get in the United team, Paul. So I don't know what planet you're thinking you're going to play for Real Madrid. Just crazy.
Yeah, you could easily put the whole Man United team up for this one, unless you're Dan, in which case you've got no room to talk. But but speaking of Dan, I'm interested to hear what you've gone for.
Well, you'd be surprised to know it's not the Liverpool back four from last weekend. Mine is Man City, but more particularly Man City's media section, because I think when they signed Ruben Diaz, they put up the usual spiel about how happy they are to have him at the club.
Oh, I remember this now, yeah.
Yeah, except at certain points they left the name Koulibaly in there.
Yeah.
Which was awkward, to be honest, really awkward to look at. I think 3 or 4 times, I think they had like a main headline that said, "Welcome Kalidou Koulibaly." And the next one, so this week just gone, their Twitter was banned for a short period of time, or taken down rather for a short period of time, because they were buying followers. So they had, I think, 8.6 million followers when it was removed, and they came back with something like 1.2 million. So they were accused of, by Twitter, I assume, and I don't know if they were found guilty of, but buying Twitter followers. So if ever anything summed up a club more, it would probably be that.
Buying Twitter followers, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's brilliant.
Yeah, it was Tuesday maybe this week. Their Twitter page just vanished. You couldn't find it. You could find the women's one, different associated supporters ones, but their actual Twitter was gone for a good few hours in the day.
Oh, fantastic. Buying Twitter followers. That's a new one. Well, that just sums up Man City, doesn't it? Trying to buy there. That's brilliant.
Well, last year they were hiring influencers for the stadium. I don't know if you remember that. They were advertising for influencers, like Instagram influencers, to come and watch matches and stuff. They are just everything that's wrong with modern football.
That is crazy. That's new. I was like, buying influencers. Wow.
Yeah, they were doing that last year. They were hiring influencers to come to the ground and take photos to try and attract more people, I assume.
Yeah, I mean, people talk about Man City's atmosphere all the time. It's not because of the attendances or the stadium itself, because they get good attendances. Even if they're not always full, it's still about 50,000 fans. It's a big stadium. The problem is the atmosphere around the whole club. There's no feel. This might be a bit weird, but you do have to. With a club like Palace, for instance, it feels like a proper football club, like a working class football club, and that's why it has a good atmosphere, because it has that feel about it. Manchester City doesn't. It feels very corporate. It's very I don't know if I go as far as say everything wrong with modern football, but it's certainly got a lot wrong with it in that sense. And I think that filters through amongst the fans and on the pitch. And I think that you sort of have to put your flag in the ground, so to speak, on one area of that. And if you don't, then you sort of get the worst of both worlds, really.
I have my opinion on Man City right now, but previously, I had no disdain towards Man City whatsoever. When they were what they were, and they had a decent following, and they were finishing mid-table, etc., and that's the football club they were. That's where they were at, and they got some good results. They beat United every now and then, and that was great. It's this whole newfound money, if you like, that's bought them all the success. And I guess it'll catch up eventually in terms of the fans and the following. But you're right, the atmosphere there is it's non-existent. You know what I mean? You can't buy that sort of thing, in my opinion. And Palace have got a great atmosphere. I like going down to Palace. But it just doesn't happen at City. But they proclaim that it's there, and they've always been this big club, and it's just not the case.
Well, they had a fair on Main Road. I mean, they've got something like 30,000 fans in League One, which is impressive. Yeah. So they do have a big fan base behind them. But I mean, yeah, like you said, I mean, I went there. I went to City in the League Cup a few years ago now. We lost that match 5-1. And the buses were late because the traffic was awful, which took us 2 hours to get out of London. And we missed the first half. So it was easily the worst away I'd ever been on. And the atmosphere, again, the entire top stands on both sides were empty. You had about 30,000 City fans there. Because, I mean, again, that's the same with all League Cups. I mean, we're lucky if we get 10,000 fans on a League Cup. It's pretty disgraceful, to be honest. Yeah. Because people just don't want to watch a game on a Tuesday night. It's not against the Premier League team. So it's unfortunate, but I suppose that's the way it is. But yeah, so out of those three, which one do you want to go for?
I mean, the Man City one, buying influencers, that is hysterical. I didn't know that. That is brilliant. Well, not brilliant, it's bang out of order, but that's funny. That is like...
I'm sticking with City.
Like a 10-year-old buying like points on FIFA, innit? So I'm going to buy... We're a small club, but I'm going to buy loads of influencers and pretend we're... That's just brilliant. That's fantastic. Love that.
Yeah, it does. I mean, it does stink of corporate desperation, doesn't it? It's like you're trying to hire. You clearly don't understand this. You're trying to hire people to do the job for you. Like it's. Yeah, well, I mean that's.
I just don't get it, me with City. Like, just be who you are. Like, you know, stay. I mean, obviously they've got all this money and they're a very good club now, a very good side now. But let it just progress naturally. This whole having to buy, you know, people in and stuff like that, and almost they're trying to rush to be where they want to be. I suppose the Champions League's driving a lot of it. They're so desperate for the Champions League that they need this atmosphere and they need this status, if you like. But, oh, God, they drive me insane. They really do.
I think they have lost their identity a lot, because I think that Manchester City were like the team of Manchester, so to speak. Like even Man United, Man United were typically the team. You know, they were visited by you quote your glory hunters and your armchair fans. They were all seen as Man United fans, whereas people in Manchester typically actually supported Manchester City.
Yeah.
But now, I mean, you can't really say that anymore. I'd say it's 50-50 at best, really. Yeah. I think United's sort of fall from grace has helped them in that regard a bit, because it has made them more grounded, I suppose. Even though they're still spending 80 million on bang average centre backs, like I would hardly call them perfect, but there is definitely more of a balance now, purely because City have gone so far in the other direction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all right then. Well, that's about all the time we've got for this week. So thanks for listening to this episode. Be sure to drop us a like and a follow, whatever platform you're on. You can find us on YouTube and Spotify at Let's All Laugh At a Football Podcast, as well as Twitter at LALA_podcast. Be sure to check out Dan's work on Read Liverpool and Last Word on Sport. Be sure to check out Life's a Pitch. Check out our social media. Links in the description, as always. Thanks to Dan and Johnny for joining me. Thanks for listening next time. Take care.